Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the local buyer pre-tender briefing for motor vehicles and e-mobility vehicles, LB320. We're just waiting to make sure a few more participants come in, and we'll start momentarily in about a minute's time. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining the local buyer pre-tender briefing for motor vehicles and e-mobility vehicles, LB320. On behalf of our CEO, Peter Misford, and the local buy team, we would like to welcome you all today. After this briefing, within the next few days, you will actually receive a copy of this, and it will also be uploaded to our website. Joining me today, I have Shane Grimstone and Audrey Dobell, and myself, Liz McFarlane, will actually take you through the briefing. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and recognise their continuing connection to land, water, and community. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. So today, as I mentioned, we have Shane Grimstone, who is our Category Manager for Fleet and Field Services, Audrey Dobell, who is our Customer Relationship Manager for North Queensland and Northern Territory, and myself, Liz McFarlane, who looks after Southern Queensland and Tasmania. So we'll go through the presentation and we will open it up for questions. Please note that this tender goes to market tomorrow, and then it will be available to access from then. During that period, you are unable to reach out directly through the category manager. You must actually go through APET 360 to the forum and ask questions. We will touch on that shortly. So why are you here today? The local buyer pre-tender briefing is to provide you, a potential supplier, or in many cases a current supplier, an outline of the arrangement and the streamlined process of becoming a pre-qualified supplier on a local buyer arrangement. So you're going to find out who is local buyer and what a pre-qualified arrangement is and why our arrangements are so important. An outline of the categories, including the term of contract, the platforms we use for you to respond to this tender, key things you need to remember when applying for a local buy tender, and where you can go for support. And that's really important also, that you realise that we are here to support you. So what did the Queensland Office find? This is why our buyers use local buy. So I won't read all through that. You can see that on there. So this was last year under procurement and contract management practices are still weak. And you can see that there's approximately $8 billion in procuring goods and services through various suppliers and service providers to local government. So who is local buy and what is a pre-qualified arrangement? Well, local buy was established in 2001 by the Local Government Association of Queensland, or LGAQ, our parent company, to meet the needs of local government with the procurement process. Our arrangements enable council and government authorities to purchase a broad range of products and services from pre-qualified or preferred suppliers without needing to undertake a tender process or request multiple quotes. We are profit for purpose organisation. In other words, all profits return to LGAQ. Local buy arrangements are an exception under Section 234 of the Local Government Regulations for purchases of any size. One of the questions that we do frequently get is what happens with those profits that are returned to LGAQ? The answer to that is LGAQ then use that for the various 77 councils, whether it be training, whether it be advertising. So it effectively does go back to council. So local buy are establishing a register of pre-qualified suppliers under the local government arrangement for the provision of motor vehicles and e-mobility vehicles, LB320, to assist purchasers in managing their individual requirements. The intent of this new LGA arrangement is to provide councils and other purchasers in Queensland and the Northern Territory with easy access to suppliers of these services by providing effective and streamlined procurement process whilst maintaining transparency and probity throughout. So these are the various organisations who can access the local buy arrangement. So all 77 Queensland councils, the Regional Organisation of Councils or ROCs, government-owned corporations, state government departments, agencies and statutory authorities, water and port authorities, charities and not-for-profit organisations, universities and schools, Northern Territory and Tasmanian councils where they participate. In this instance, it's only Northern Territory that will also be participating, and large privately owned corporate entities who have been approved to use these contracts. So I'm now going to hand you over to Shane, who will discuss in detail about the arrangement.
Good afternoon. My name's Shane Grimstone, and a number of you would know me. I'm the Category Manager for Fleet and Field Services at Local Buy, and I'll be running this tender process. So yes, we're releasing this to market on 1st of February, actually midnight tonight. It will go out. We will evaluate that tender in April, begin appointments in March, and the new arrangement will start in April, contrary to what I've put on the screen there. Anyway, I'll have that fixed before we send it out. So we've changed the categories around a little bit to reflect what the current market is. So there'll be 4 categories, and obviously the most popular one is motor vehicles, and that is covering passenger vehicles, light commercial vehicles, which is, you know, our traditional utilities, commercial vans, and it'll also include those mini buses, which are up to 20-seat vans, and SUVs. The second category is going to be around electric vehicles. So these will be pure battery electric vehicles, and the same range of vehicles, passenger, light commercial, SUVs, but also things like e-scooters, e-bikes, e-cargo vans, and e-tuk-tuks, which are currently entering the market and seem to be quite popular. Third category is fuel cell vehicles, so hydrogen vehicles. I know at the moment we've only got a few vehicles in the market, and they sort of tend to be restricted to capital city areas, but bear in mind that this contract's going to run for about 9 years before we refresh. So what the market looks like in 3, 5 or 7 years time, we need to have this open as much as possible. And the final category is motorised cycles. So we're talking about motorbikes, motorised trikes, quad bikes, and all-terrain vehicles. So our general conditions of contracts. So all our contracts have these GCCs. This is the conditions of contract between yourself as a supplier and Local Buy. And within that, you will have all the things that we're asking for. So important things there are listed. I guess the things that probably the most controversial one in there is going to be a pricing schedule. And typically suppliers in this market are representing manufacturers who usually have a government price schedule that is applicable. We would like to receive a copy of that. It won't go up into the vendor panel for everyone to see unless you as a supplier give permission to do that. It'll remain within the Local Buy system, only to be released upon your approval. So just a little more around that. So every manufacturer's got a different approach to government pricing. We won't be evaluating pricing to compare between brands A, B, C, etc. It's purely for our own internal records. Naturally, prices that include, GST in the Australian dollar. Due to the nature of industry and the change of pricing, we're only looking to that for 3 months. So for those of you who are able to provide a copy of your government price schedule, it will remain with us for 3 months. At that point in time, we would be reaching out for you to give us an update, and we'll replace that in the system. Those prices are never shared with anybody outside of the local buyer organisation. So your prices will be not shared with dealers with the same brand or any other dealers or suppliers. Will only be available to councils upon your approval. So some critical areas: quality assurance, workplace health and safety, and environmental. So some companies will have third-party ISO accreditation or Australian Standards accreditation. It's not mandatory. If you have your own policy or processes, if you're able to provide us either a copy of that or evidence that you have these management systems in place, that will suffice in your tender response. Minimum insurance levels, so your public liability insurance will be 20 million, product liability 20 million, and then naturally you'll have your statutory work cover insurance relating to whether you're in Queensland or the Northern Territory. So contract fees. So we're just about at the end of a 10-year arrangement, which was set in place by a predecessor, and I targeted a completely different approach to the market. We've decided to take a new look at it. So rather than having an annual fee and then having fees related to vehicle sales, we've divided the market up into 3 tiers: tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And the fees will be a single annual fee based on the number of units that you as a supplier sell according to your manufacturer. So if you're your manufacturer and you're selling brand X and you have sold 350 units in the last financial year, then you would be a tier 3. Likewise for tier 1 and 2, you can see that the 501 to 1500 units at 3,000, and the tier 1 will be 1500 plus units at 5,000. These are excluding GST, of course, and the fee is due upon your successful tender response. For those suppliers who are doing electric vehicle charges, are going to be classified as a tier 3 supplier, so which comes in at $1,000 for the year. So registration and vendor panel. Liz, do you want to give us a bit of an overview of that?
So the first step obviously is to register in vendor panel. So often it's confusing for people what vendor panel is versus APET 360, but APET 360 is our tendering platform, whereas vendor panel is our online electronic RFQ system, which is accessible through local buy by both the supplier and purchasers. So in other words, once you've successfully tendered, you then only ever have to quote to council through local buy. So this is where all the quotes are online. So if you're not already registered, please go to vendor panel and register. It's completely free to register. A lot of your businesses may be registered in Marketplace, but it's really important to know that Marketplace is not a pre-qualified list of suppliers. So while some of your businesses may also be listed on Marketplace, unless your businesses engage under the local buy arrangement number, buyers are not covered by the terms and conditions of the local buy contract or the legislative exception. So why do we use vendor panel? Because you're required to be registered in vendor panel to receive notifications of when we also release tenders. You receive notifications from council when they wish to purchase for you under a local buy arrangement. So once again, vendor panel, when you see something come through vendor panel from councils referencing local buy, it is now only a quote that is required. Also very important that you make reference where possible to this contract number. So registering in APET 360, as Shane mentioned, tonight, midnight, if you're a little bit bored and can't sleep, you'll be able to log on to APET 360 and have a look and open up the tender. So APET 360 is an electronic tender platform. There's the address there. If you haven't already registered, please register. Once again, that is free to register. Ready, set, go. So what happens from here? So now we would like you to register in vendor panel and APET 360. Then the first day of active arrangements being open, which is tomorrow, as we said, midnight tonight. The tenders will then close last day of February, be assessed, and then the third month is when people will be appointed and you can officially commence trading. So keep an eye out on your emails. So especially when you're in the tender process, you'll get emails from notifications at APET software. So there's a couple of examples there on the right. What will also happen is when you ask questions through that forum, you will get notified that people have asked a question. It won't show your name, it will show the question, and then Shane, in this instance, will come back to the whole forum and answer that question. Once again, very important, as from tonight midnight, you do not speak to Shane directly, whether it be email or voice, in regards to this tender. If you're unsure, please put it through the forum. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to reach out to Audrey or myself. So what do you need to remember? Give yourself enough time to complete the tender. You may update your submission at any time, even if the tender is completed, until the tender closing date. That is the last day of the month, 2 p.m. Brisbane time. Keep an eye out for emails, as we mentioned, notifications at APET software, as well as your junk mail box. And I know that one tricks me every time, as I often have things living in my junk mail. All questions must go through APET 360 forum, which will be responded to by the relevant category. And that's to ensure we maintain that chain of probity and everyone is treated fairly and equitable. So during the tender process, start to finish, opening of tenders to appointments. Once again, you must not make contact directly with the category manager. This is to ensure that local buy continues to maintain the highest level of probity, as we mentioned. If during this time you must speak to a representative from local buy, reach out to either Audrey or myself, or even the inquiries line. So APET 360 will be available on the first day of the arrangement cycle. Please complete all the questions in full and supply all supporting documents as identified. Refer to our websites, localbuy.net.au and localbuyactive.com.au, or social media for regular updates, or even via LinkedIn and Facebook. Remember, we're here to help you, so please reach out to Audrey and myself if you have any queries. I will now open the floor up to questions via the chat, please. And bear in mind, you have the most technically challenged person here in regards to myself. So it might take a little while to answer all your questions in chat, but we will speak verbally to those.
People can always use the Q&A type of question in if that's what they would like. And whilst you're thinking of a question, just let you know, as Liz said, once the tender's open, you can't speak directly to me. You can ask questions through the portal, and obviously can put questions back to Audrey or Liz. I will be on leave from the 4th of February for 2 weeks. So if you've got some questions of the tender, please put them through the portal in the next couple of days. I will have limited access to emails after that time. So anything that's particularly technical, it could take a little bit to get a response back. Okay. Yeah, so Stephen, yes, Tasmania are not participating in this arrangement, but suppliers from Tasmania, if you're in a position to supply Queensland and Northern Territory, you're welcome to respond to the tender. Bear in mind, depending upon what you're supplying, council often will have a local preference. So if you're a car dealer, they might have a local preference to dealers within their area, obviously. If you're an EV charger supplier or an importer of vehicles, that probably is not going to be an issue. Okay. Look, if there are no more questions, obviously we've got a couple of hours this afternoon where you can make contact with us. Feel free to do that. For those of you, Liz, have we got our contact details in this PowerPoint?
There we
excellent, go. Yeah. So yeah, you can pop us an email or give us a call this afternoon if there's something comes up to your mind. May have one other question here.
I'll read out the question. It says, with regards to the annual fee, are the categories based on total sales for the dealership or just sales through local buy? Okay, so it is total sales through your dealership. So if you're a dealer for, I didn't want to do this. If you're a dealer for Nissan, and Nissan give you your annual report and say that you sold, 567 Nissans for the year, that is how what your tier is. So that would be a tier 2. If you hold multiple dealerships, you may want to consider whether you want to combine all of them or only tender based on the brands you feel council are likely to buy. Now, this is going to be an extreme one. If you're a Nissan dealer and also a Ferrari dealer, I wouldn't bother with the Ferrari numbers. Clearly, council are not going to buy Ferraris. If they did, we'd all have a lot of questions. So there are brands out there, and you would be aware that council aren't particularly interested in. If at the future stage you decide that, yeah, council are going to buy those Ferraris after all, then you can come back to us and say, look, we've sold additional number of vehicles. We think we should be in a different category, and we can make some adjustments around that. Okay, look, we might wrap it up there now. Doesn't seem to be any other questions. Like I said, you can contact us by mobile phone or email. But from tomorrow, please put any questions through the APEP 360 portal, and we'll be happy to answer those. Bear in mind, don't put, my name is Shane and I'm with, dealership X, and I've got this crazy question, because we don't want, I would be then responding back with a blank question so that your name and business is not shown in the question, but everybody would see the basis of the question and the same response. Okay, look, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Please feel free to reach out this afternoon. If not,
good luck with your tender responses. Thank you very much.